Welcome back, everybody. We're here to talk NFL playoff football. That's right. It is NFL Wild Card Weekend, and it's going to be a wild one. We got some incredible matchups, and we want to talk about the NFL, and we want to talk about these games. We bring on our NFL managing editor, David Kull, and we're going to run through these games through each of the 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's a good football weekend for everyone. David, thanks for being here to talk about these games. You fired up for these playoffs today?
I'm totally fired up. I can't wait for Wild Card Weekend. Let's get it on.
All right, so let's start with the Saturday games. On Saturday, we have first the Cleveland Browns travel down to Houston to take on the Texans in that game. And then, of course, later on in the evening, the Dolphins at the Chiefs. Let's stay on the Browns and Texans. This one, I mean, David, I'm really excited for this game, maybe because I tend to side with the AFC. I grew up in an AFC city, so I kind of like AFC football. But this one, you have Joe Flacco. Old Man Winter gets off the couch, goes out there, balls out, the fourth starting quarterback for the Browns this year. They lost Chubb, their running back. I mean, just an incredible story with the Browns. They're going on to play, I think, who will be the offensive rookie of the year, and that is C.J. Stroud and these Houston Texans, and DeMeco Ryans, a finalist, I think, for Coach of the Year. So many storylines. This game is going to be an exciting one. Tell me why people want to watch this game. What do you see happening between the Browns and the Texans?
Well, first of all, Joe Flacco is perhaps the story of the season. Coming off his couch over a month ago to lead the Browns into the playoffs, 38 years old. He led the Ravens to a Super Bowl victory, 12 years ago now? And here he's on the back end of his career, and he gets pulled in as the fourth quarterback. They've had five quarterbacks now because they played a fifth one last week, Jeff Driscoll, in just a game that didn't mean anything. But Flacco is quarterback number 4. He's been the answer for the Browns. The Browns come in with the best defense in football, and they're going up against C.J. Stroud, as you just mentioned, probably offensive rookie of the year. The last time these two teams met, Stroud wasn't playing in that game. It was Davis Mills. And Stroud was on the bench. He was in concussion protocol. And Amari Cooper just went off in that game. 265 receiving yards in that game. The best receiving performance of the season, of his career, too. And in this game, I think it's going to be a shootout. But because the Browns have the best defense of football, I think they're going to make it really tough for C.J. Stroud. So that's why I believe that Flacco and the Browns come out on top in this game.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, too, because as much as I've been impressed with Stroud and the Texans and what they've been able to do, experience matters, right? And especially in big games like this in the playoffs. So you got to like what the Browns have on defense. And, of course, having Flacco back there, quarterback, a little bit more unshakable, if you will, down there. The other game that day on Saturday in the AFC is the Dolphins at the Chiefs. I think the Dolphins, they are the Dallas Cowboys, right? As you told me in a meeting earlier today, the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC, really unable to win on the road and unable to win really big games so far. Look, I like the Dolphins. They're fun to watch. They're really banged up, a lot of injuries. Any way they can get past the Chiefs in the 12-degree weather that we'll see in Kansas City?
I really don't think so. I think they're just so banged up right now. I mean, they're coming off probably the toughest schedule of any team down the stretch. In those games they had to play down toward the end. They played Dallas, they played Baltimore, and they played Buffalo. Anybody would get beat up playing those three teams over the last 3 weeks. But they are seriously banged up on both sides of the ball. They just signed Justin Houston today, former Kansas City Chief. Defensive player, had 22 sacks one year. He's not the same player he was back then, but they need any help they can get on defense. They've lost their two best edge rushers for the season. Bradley Chubb went down, 2 weeks ago now with the knee injury. He's out for the year. They had already lost Jalen Phillips. Offensive side of the ball, you don't know if they're going to have Jalen Waddle back yet. Raheem Mostert was out last week. Yeah, Tua is just throwing to Tyreek Hill and a bunch of other guys right now and hoping for the best. And right now they're going into Kansas City. The Chiefs coming off a week where they played a meaningless game. They sat Mahomes and Kelsey and company. And I think just going into Kansas City, into that frigid weather, playing a team that's still the defending Super Bowl champions despite all the issues they've had. The Chiefs also have the number 2 defense in football. So surprise. So I see the Chiefs coming out victorious in this game.
There you go. Now we move to Sunday. Only one AFC game on Sunday. Obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Bills. I don't think we should spend much time on this game unless you want to, but I just don't think the Steelers, who kind of backed into the playoffs, I give Mike Tomlin credit for what he does there, but the Bills are really hot. This game is at home. I don't see any way the Steelers go in there and pick up the upset. Do you?
I mean, the Steelers, they've won 3 straight games, and Mike Tomlin finally went to the quarterback he probably should have gone to a lot earlier, and Mason Rudolph. Rudolph comes in, third-string quarterback, sitting behind Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky, wins 3 straight games for him, looks better than the other 2 had all season long. It's a great story to see how the Steelers were able to play their way in at the end of the season. But I think this is just way too tall a task for them. They don't have T.J. Watt, the leader in sacks, because he's out with his injury right now, an MCL sprain. That'll probably keep him out the rest of the way, no matter how far the Steelers go. The Bills are the hottest team in football right now, coming off that big victory over the Dolphins. Playing at home, I don't see any way the Steelers win this game. Buffalo wins big.
There you go. Okay, on the NFC action on Sunday, the game we talked about earlier, the Rams and the Lions, we'll get to in a second. But first, we're going to see the number 7 seed, the Green Bay Packers. They go to Dallas. And this one, David, we know how good Dallas is at home. And as good as the Packers have played, as good as Jordan Love has looked for a young quarterback who's had his ups and downs, it's a tall task to go down to Jerry World in the playoffs with a young team and beat that Dallas team and Dak Prescott, who also plays incredibly well at home.
The Cowboys are just a much different team at AT&T Stadium. They score about 40 points a game. They went 8-0 there. It's just a very comfortable environment for Dak and company. CeeDee Lamb has turned into, at the end of the year here, well, actually, over the whole course of the year, he's just a major weapon. He's one of the biggest playmakers in the game. I think he's had 12 straight games with scores, something like that.
Crazy.
Or maybe it's less than that. I'm mixing him up with Christian McCaffrey from earlier or something to that effect. But anyway, I'm just saying the CeeDee Lamb is among the best playmakers in the game, an all-pro all the way. Dak Prescott's looking like an MVP candidate, but when he's playing at home, he looks like a Hall of Famer. He's just a different quarterback there. And the Packers with Jordan Love, I wrote this yesterday, as a matter of fact, Scott. I wrote about Jordan Love saying that he's been an upgrade over Aaron Rodgers. He's played better than Aaron Rodgers did in Aaron Rodgers' first season, taking over for Brett Favre, and he played better than Rodgers did last year. Over the last 7 games, he's thrown 18 touchdown passes to 1 interception. Just an incredible season for Jordan Love. A sign of greater things ahead for that team. They have the youngest roster in football for Matt LaFleur. So they're going to be good. Just this time around, playing the Cowboys at home, I think it's just too much for them. Next year will be their year, maybe. We'll see. But this year won't be. I see the Cowboys winning this game.
All right. Next, we move on to the game where I am picking my upset special. I know you probably won't agree with me. We'll see in a second. But the Rams travel to the Lions, and as great as a story as the Lions have been this year, and I know people in Detroit right now are clicking off the video because they're mad at me, but I will tell you, I feel like the matchup with the Rams, how well the Rams have been playing going into Detroit, to me, I think they have a good shot at it. I'm going to pick them, but I will tell you, the Lions are hungry. They have a great team. They have a great leader in Dan Campbell, and that crowd is going to be insane up in the Motor City.
Yeah, I think this is the game of the weekend. I think it's the most closely matched game. I see it coming down to, it's going to be a high-scoring game too, I believe, right? Because both defenses are sort of like middle-of-the-pack defenses. They can be run on. Actually, the Lions can't be run on so much, but the Rams can be run on. They can be passed on. So I see this game being an offensive showcase for both Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, the 2 guys who got traded for one another here, playing against each other, playing back in their original homes. Here with Stafford going back to Detroit, where he began his career, and Goff being the quarterback there now, playing against his former coach, his former team. I see the Lions coming out on top in this game. Their run defense is much better. They're second in the league in run defense. They have Kyron Williams on the other side of the ball with the Rams, who is the second leading rusher in the league. A huge surprise, a breakout player this year. Him and Puka Nacua have been 2 of the biggest breakout guys all year, and they really make that offense go for the Rams with Matthew Stafford, who's played excellent football himself. But in the end, I see the Lions being at home, coming out on top of this game. The score I pick is 37-34.
Wow, yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. If the scores are that high, it's going to be fun. So, and for those of you who like to wager, figure that out. All right. The last game of the weekend is going to be on the first day of the work week, at least, and that is Monday. The Eagles travel down to Tampa Bay. I mean, David, you and I have talked about this over the last several weeks as we previewed games. The Philadelphia Eagles are in serious trouble. You look at what's happened to them. Yes, they've had injuries, But it just seems as though there is so much dysfunction happening there, including with head coach Nick Sirianni. If they go one and done here, if they were to lose to the Buccaneers down in Tampa, even though they're the lower seed or high seed, what happens with Nick Sirianni? Is his job on the line here if he doesn't win this game down in Tampa?
I don't see how it can't be right now. It's really almost preposterous to think that, because when you go back to the beginning of December, they were 10-1 on top of the world, talking about their winning culture and how confident they were. And at the time, they had just won 4 straight games in comeback fashion. They'd been down at halftime, came back behind Jalen Hurts, and were 10-1 riding high. But then after they lost that game, that game to the 49ers, ever since then, just the wheels have fallen off this team completely. And we've heard about bickering in the locker room, just lots of drama, finger pointing. And they just, right now, seem like a team that is just a shell of themselves. It's almost like they've lost complete confidence in who they are. And they no longer really have an identity. And it's just, and Nick Sirianni is the leader of that team. He's got to pull it together. And he's been unable to do that so far. And that team just walks off the field shaking its head every week, it seems like. So I don't see them recovering in 1 week. They lost A.J. Brown, it looks like now as well. Devontae Smith's banged up. He was out last week. Jalen Hurts has some finger issues going on. And this defense has just been porous. Yeah. And I just see Baker Mayfield lighting them up this week. Him and Mike Evans are going to be quite a connection, I think, in that game. And I see the Bucs winning this game by a score of about 28-17.
Yeah, I like, Baker Mayfield had a rough go last week. But that happens, right? And again, the opportunity for the Buccaneers here, who've been just a surprise around the NFL, and the job Todd Bowles done there is amazing. And so it's going to be an exciting game, but that will then facilitate conversation around Nick Sirianni's future. Like you said, it's crazy to think that a year after he was in the Super Bowl, but it wouldn't be the first time we've seen it happen with a coach that went to the Super Bowl and then the next year stuff just falls apart. So we'll have to do some more research on that one as it pops up, but it's going to be fascinating. Just a great football weekend. And of course, next weekend, when we get the winners out of this, David, then the 49ers and the Ravens join the party next week. And I know we'll be here for all of that. David, as always, man, we appreciate you being with us and give us your insight into Wild Card Weekend playoff matchups.
I appreciate you having me, Scott. I love it.
All right. For David, I'm Scott Gulbransen. Do us a favor here at Sportsnaut. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that notifications bell. That way, every time we have a new video, you will get notified as well. Make sure you check out this weekend, too. If you want to know what's going on with the games, if you want the storylines, come up, see us on Sportsnaut.com. Until next time, have a great weekend. We'll see you then.